Operation Allied Goodwill, I and II. In the early 1990s, as the Cold War gave way to a new world order, the collapse of the Soviet Union triggered a humanitarian and logistical crisis across Eastern Europe and the former Soviet republics. Entire economies imploded overnight. Infrastructure crumbled. Food and medical shortages grew severe. As newly independent nations struggled to survive the shock of transition, NATO, traditionally a military alliance, was confronted with a different kind of mission: humanitarian aid on a massive scale. In response, it launched Operation Allied Goodwill I and II, two of the alliance's first coordinated humanitarian efforts to deliver life-saving assistance to those on the brink. Operation Allied Goodwill I began in 1992, as NATO countries used their airlift capabilities to deliver food, clothing, medical supplies, and essential goods to Russia, Ukraine, Armenia, and Georgia. The operation relied heavily on military cargo aircraft, C-130s, C-160s, and others, transporting aid collected from NATO member states. These were not weapons or troops, but boxes of antibiotics, baby formula, blankets, and clean water. It was an extraordinary pivot from NATO's traditional role, reflecting the shifting global priorities of the post-Cold War era. This was followed by Operation Allied Goodwill II in 1993, which expanded the mission's reach and continued the delivery of humanitarian supplies, particularly to hard-hit regions of the former Soviet Union and the Caucasus. The two operations combined delivered thousands of tons of relief, coordinated by NATO's Euro-Atlantic Disaster Response Coordination Center, EADRCC, and carried out in close collaboration with international aid agencies. What made these operations groundbreaking was their symbolism. For decades, NATO and the Soviet Union had been adversaries, locked in a tense arms race and divided by ideology. Now, NATO aircraft were landing in former enemy territory, greeted not by hostility, but by need and gratitude. These missions signaled a profound shift. NATO wasn't just a security bloc. It could also be a force for recovery, for hope, and for rebuilding trust in a fractured world. The logistics were complex. The alliance had to coordinate customs, permissions, landing rights, and distribution in countries with unstable governments and disorganized infrastructure. But NATO's military precision, developed for combat, proved equally effective in delivering humanitarian aid. Convoys moved swiftly. Airlifts operated on tight schedules. Supplies reached remote areas that other organizations struggled to access. Allied Goodwill I and II also served as confidence-building measures. They opened channels of communication between NATO and former Soviet states. They allowed military personnel from opposing sides of the Iron Curtain to work together. In some places, they were the first tangible contact civilians had ever had with NATO forces, not as occupiers or rivals, but as rescuers. While these operations were brief and largely unpublicized, their legacy is powerful. They marked NATO's first real step into humanitarian assistance and crisis response. They helped redefine the alliance's role in a rapidly changing world and proved that soft power, delivered with military efficiency, could be just as transformative as hard power. Operation Allied Goodwill I and II were missions of mercy, born in a moment of global uncertainty. They showed that even an alliance built for war could turn its strength toward peace. And in doing so, they helped write a new chapter, not just in NATO's history, but in the story of international cooperation in a post-Cold War world.